Hello and welcome to another episode of the Culture Nerd Podcast. This week, we're going to be going over episode 38. We're actually going to sit down with the supervising producer, co-creator, lead actor, and director of several episodes for the upcoming Spider-Man and the Monsters of Manhattan fan series that's coming to YouTube. We'll be sitting down with Alex Iascone and Brandon Melo, and we'll talk to them about the project and everything in between. So let's get right into it, everyone. And, I think I did exactly what I said I didn't want to do, Brandon. I think you said how to pronounce your last name. And then I was thinking about one of our other co-hosts from our other shows, who was Brandon Melo. And I'm like, oh, his name is Michael Melo. And I'm like, oh, no, I said it as I said it wrong. I was like, damn it.
It's all good. Yeah. Well, still excited to be here. Thank you so much for having us.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Taylor and I famously met at a park near our house, and then his mom took me to get Costco pizza, so we have been friends for life. How did you two run into each other? When did your relationship start?
I'll let Brandon start off on this one. I like the way he tells the story.
Yeah, we've been friends for quite a while. We actually own a production house called Car Wash Millionaires, and we were actually helping a local parish. We grew up in the same neighborhood, and we actually met at a car wash. And from there, we've been fundraising for other things. One of which is, of course, this project.
Are you still in the car wash game?
Well, our company is certainly called Car Wash Millionaires, so maybe.
Definitely open to other more filmmaking adjacent avenues of the current, but we're open to anything, and especially with getting our name out there. It's a great plug with the car wash.
One more question about car washes. Who has to do all the laundry for the towels? Do you just get towels all day long? Is it the worst job at the car wash to do?
I mean, we're pretty much open to whatever. It's we know that just like filmmaking car washes, you need to wear a bunch of different hats. You need to be willing to scrub down and to detail the interior as well. So yeah, we're open to getting down in the dirt and toweling down if we need to.
What was then the genesis of this project? The name Monsters of Manhattan really gets to tell your audience which way you want to go with Spider-Man, because Spider-Man is so big at this point, you can really choose any avenue to tell your story. The MCU Spider-Man is very different than the Spider-Verse Spider-Man. So am I getting Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle vibes, or what was the crux of this project?
Sure. The meets pitch is Stranger Things meets Cobra Kai in regards to tone and atmosphere. We really want to tell a coming of age story. A coming of age story meets mystery thriller. So that's what the type of sandbox that we're playing in, and everything is seen in that tone of voice. So it's all about Peter Parker losing his innocence and confronting the demons of his past.
Is that just the uncle? Are we talking Uncle Ben, or is this all of the demons? I feel like Spider-Man, right? I guess the language we now have for these is canon events. What canon events would you are some of the ones that you like to touch on?
Sure. The biggest thing is, of course, like you had mentioned, Uncle Ben's death. We pull very heavily from the Ultimate Comics and give a new spin to the narrative that we haven't seen in live action, with Kingpin being tied to the death of Uncle Ben, and Peter starting at the beginning of the narrative in a place of wanting to seek vengeance. Monsters of Manhattan means a lot of different things in our narrative.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of what Brandon was saying, and with the canon events, obviously Uncle Ben and his death is one of the very important things that makes Spider-Man. We in our series want to respect everything that's come before us and give fans something, the things that they're expecting, but also something new to be able to latch on to. And a couple of the larger aspects that we saw in that was obviously Uncle Ben's death, but also Peter Parker being from New York, and in a lot of other works by Marvel, and obviously the Toby movies. New York was sort of its own character in the movie, and we wanted to play with that and just be able to give the series a real sense of self and let you know exactly what was happening and thrust you into it as soon as we can. And we thought that New York was a great way to do that, both in aesthetic and just overall vibe.
You had mentioned Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yes.
What were your comic book buying years? What were runs and things like that you were reading at that time? They don't have to just be Spider-Man. What were things that were getting into your head? When were your prime years?
So what inspired us in the inception of the series?
No. What specifically did your parents give you allowance for, and what comic books did you buy?
So growing up, okay, there are so many. That's a loaded question. Wow.
It's okay. It's tough when you're a kid because I remember like just grab bags, right? Like you'd be like, oh, I'll buy this one X-Men comic and this one Flash comic. I had a Star Wars Droids and Batman versus Spawn, and all of a sudden I was like, okay, great. This is a world I want to live in. I love that you are bringing those types of worlds into New York. Did either one of you grow up on the East Coast?
Yeah,
both of us.
Boston. Yeah, we're both Boston based. I grew up loving the comics. The primary thing was the Ultimate Universe, but of course I loved a good amount of the 616. To the left of me, I can see a stack of just like 616 related stuff. I loved a plethora of other characters. I love Batman and everything there. I love the psychological aspects. Recently, I've been getting into a lot of Superman, especially with the new shows coming out. I also especially loved Ben 10. That was a big thing in regards to just like, you're talking about like world building and atmosphere. I mean, Ben 10 has so many universes and worlds to explore. That's what, as a kid, got me hooked on just world building in general.
Alex, we'll talk about your world building. I do want to know, is the Ben 10 universe in completion, or are the Ben 10 fans asking for anything right now?
They're asking for a movie right now, from what I've heard from Man of Action. I don't know if it's going to happen. They've been throwing Tom Holland at it left and right. Truthfully, I don't really want that, but I think they should get an unknown. But I hope that we get a good live action. The ones that that I received while growing up, some of the live action stuff was just no bueno. Could have been better, like Alien Swarm. Not to name any things in particular.
I clearly asked you what you didn't want to talk about. I didn't know bringing up the bad live action Ben 10 movies was going to trigger you like this.
It's very close to his heart, you know.
It's so close to his heart.
So Michael and I, we grew up in the 90s. Our shows, we were kids, was like X-Men, like the old X-Men show, the old Spider-Man show. We grew up when Power Rangers first came on air in the first time in like 93 or so, something like that. That was our childhood. I also, to comment on what you're saying, I hate how everyone's fan casting Tom Holland for everything. Yeah. Because Tom Holland's like, he's 27. So people need to realize that he's already at his final form. His next form is when he goes gray. So everyone's like, oh, he's going to look older. He's going to look perpetually 16. And then he's going to get really old really fast. So I'm tired of everyone casting him in these young roles and then expecting people to be like, oh, he'll grow up with it. No, he won't. Like
he's a great actor. He does some fine work in the Spider-Man films. It's just to constantly cast him in all of these different parts, some of which he's not, fit for. The Uncharted picture that recently came out.
Thank goodness that you think that movie is garbage too. So many people were like, "It's kind of okay." It's a garbage movie. It's crazy what they do in that when all they had to do was copy the video game. Just choose any of the games and just do a scene for scene remake.
Speaking of just like fan films in general, have you seen the Nathan Fillion fan film for Uncharted?
So good.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
so good. That's all they had to do. Just give that group some money and just say, make what you made, just 2 hours longer, and everyone would have been happy. Michael and I kind of argued about this because there were certain things of the Uncharted film that I was okay with. 90% of it, not so much, but I love adventure films. I love the aesthetics. I loved everything they did. I just thought the casting was wrong across the board.
I like that they built all of that underground temple. Like I liked all of that stuff. I just didn't I knew that Tom Holland and Marky Mark were going to be friends, and the fact that they just fought with each other the entire movie, and then in the last 5 minutes they're like, "Hey, now we're like BFFs and we got this rapport."
Yeah, so, that last scene should have been the whole movie. I was just like, "What is this?
Don't explain anything. Just have them go on an adventure."
That's what they did in the first game. They just started you right in the middle of one. Like, just do that.
I think it really highlights the importance of talking to the fans and trying to provide the fans what they want, because always, especially when you're adapting a project, the fans are going to be the backbone of any success that you see. And if you do something that's against that, or you do something that the fans aren't looking for, then it's almost always a recipe for failure. And it's certainly something that we always try to keep in mind as we show things around. We're always excited when we meet a new Spider-Man fan and we say, "Hey, what do you think of this?" Because we're always trying to get a new perspective from someone who's ingrained in the world, who's part of the fandom, and hear what they have to say. And obviously you want to make a series for everyone, but if you ignore your primary fan base, it's never going to have a good end.
Well, heard, but one of the great things is that you get to tell the story that you guys want to, specifically in doing it in this form and the way that you want to do it. Where does this project fall in your do you refer to this as a film project? I mean, this is you are doing things on a professional level, or trying to. Where does this fall in your resumes? Is this your first thing? Have you worked on other things?
Well, Alex and I are both working actors. This is a passion project, and we're hoping to also use it for a vehicle for exposure. We can use it as a calling card. So in the future, because this is our first project together in our company's first project. So we want to use this as a calling card and saying, "Hey, this is what we did with little to no money. Imagine what we could do with a larger budget." Very much what you were describing about Nathan Fillion with the Uncharted project. Growing up, I adored fan films. While they did, have a somewhat of a bad rap, in the early 2000s, because they're, made by fans for fans. So at that time, it meant lower production value. But now we're in a place where Nathan Fillion can, over the weekend, make a fan project, and it may even be better than the Uncharted picture that came out. So I think it's important to listen to your fans and deliver something that the fans want, right? It fills a void in the marketplace, especially if we can experiment and do things that the studios are not willing to do. And that's something that our project does, where, the fans have been wanting to see Scorpion in live action and Spider-Man going up against the Kingpin. We deliver on those aspects of the mythos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there's really two aspects of it from our end, at least. Part of it is telling a story that we're really passionate about. Some of the best times that Brandon and I have are just going back to the outline or going back to the script and tweaking these little things, saying, "Wouldn't it be cool if this character said this thing and then this other thing could happen?" And we just start getting on a roll from there, and it really reignites our our passion for the script every time we go through it. So we're certainly passionate about the story we're telling. And as Brandon was saying, the other aspect is a vehicle for exposure. And because this is the first project for Car Wash Millionaires and for us together outside of our own acting careers, what we really want to do is to be able to build a team around ourselves to take forward with us into future projects. We certainly intend for Car Wash Millionaires to have a long and fruitful life in producing other films. We consider ourselves indie filmmakers, and we want to stay in and evolve in that sphere. And we want to find other like-minded individuals who, share our passion for just making an objectively good product and putting something out there into the masses that that they can be proud of. And we want to bring those people into all of our future works. And just so we don't have to start from scratch at the beginning with just an idea. We have all of these passionate creatives who will be able to back us and make it into a reality.
Because long term, we want to be, filmmakers. We don't want to stay within the fan film realm.
Right.
It's a good, launching point for us. So, we know that a ton of people are going to be watching it just with the IP. Everyone, for the most part, knows who Spider-Man is. So they may stumble across our projects. So we want to make sure that, yes, we deliver what the fans are going to be looking for. But at the end of the day, we also just want to deliver an objectively good product. And I feel like that's what some of the best fan films do. We keep going back to Uncharted. Nathan Fillion understood the product, and he didn't just deliver obligatory fan service. He built up to those moments, and everything was rooted in character.
Mm-hmm. Taylor, they're talking about fandom. Why is Sony making a Gran Turismo movie?
Well, the movie
every time I see the trailer for it, I go, "Who is this movie for?"
I don't know, but the question I actually have, like, kind of on a different segue, because I don't know how to answer Michael's question. Is so fan films tend to have a very unique take and very unique reputation among the internet lately, and maybe it's just because of the fact that there's a writer's strike and there's nothing going on, and fans are clamoring for news, and outlets have nothing to do. I'm finding a lot of outlets are going after fan films in a negative light, and they're attacking them for the sake of existing. I think of Spider-Man Lotus, and for instance, with Gavin Knopf's project, there was controversy just riddled throughout the late stages of production. They raised $100K, and then a bunch of texts came out, a bunch of things came out, and we had Gavin on the show. We talked to him about it, and some of it was real, some of it wasn't. He definitely owned up to what was real and is trying to move on from it. But since the release of the project, you now see people that the headline is the fan film that was made out of spite, and just bitching at the fact that the movie exists only because the people making it were upset with how Marvel handled it, and upset for this reason or that reason, or we can do better. Did any of that ever come to the fans with you? Did you, any of your crowdfunding, did you get that rhetoric that was coming? Did fans say, we want to do this because Sony's failing us, so this is, or this reason or that reason? Did you see a lot of that rhetoric, or was even that, did that even cross your mind that people would look at it that way?
No, when we had started, this was prior to Lotus. So to be honest with you, what we were doing was part of a niche demographic. Every once in a while you would meet someone who is in the fan film community. So it would be like this almost like secret thing, like, oh, Ismahawk, Nightwing, the series. It would be like the coolest thing in the world. Fan films are on a similar trajectory to like Marvel Studios. They've become this giant thing that even some of the jocks that made fun of me growing up are watching Marvel pictures now. All this to say, fan films have become just part of the just like general zeitgeist. So it's certainly a shift for the community. and it's definitely interesting to see everything from afar. But no, Alex and I and the rest of the team have been very focused on our project and making sure that we deliver the best thing that we can. We know there's certainly some toxicity in the community, but we tend to just stray away from it. We don't think that we're better than Marvel Studios. I mean, Kevin Feige is a genius. The hope and dream is that in the future we can collaborate with some of the geniuses at Marvel. It's an interesting time in the community, to say the least.
Yeah, I just want to echo that point of focusing on what we're doing and trying to make it as good as possible. Obviously, the internet just in general can be a toxic place. If you get hundreds of thousands of people viewing any sort of video, you're going to get a handful that say, "I don't like this. This isn't good." And I think it's just important as creators to have thick skin. To take the valid criticisms where they come and to be able to internalize it and always be striving to do better. You can't let negativity get you down, especially on the internet. It's going to come. So just deal with it in stride and do your best to move on from it is our motto for our project.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm getting is
the internet is toxic.
Yeah,
this is news to me.
Oh my God, really? No,
I haven't gone out on a limb.
No. So what I'm getting is the rhetoric that surrounded Lotus, that the filmmakers thought that they could do better, so that's why they made it. Like that rhetoric is utter nonsense, right? The way I've always seen it is fan films stem from an idea that it's not about outdoing the studio or doing something different. It's about showing the world what you love, essentially. And you're not going out there to make a movie that you don't think Marvel ever will, or try to take an approach saying Marvel sucks, so I'm going to do it my way. Like, you just love Spider-Man and that's what you're doing. So I think that's one rhetoric thing that I think people need to kind of get around with certain fan films, is that nobody's trying to outdo the studios. They're all in line to see the movies too. So
I see a majority of the Marvel films opening day. Alex can attest this. I drag him to it along with the rest of my friends. So to be honest with you, this series is just a love letter. Certain things that I read in the comics that I've been dreaming to see on the screen. We attempted to translate. It's a love letter by fans for fans. To attempt to take down Marvel Studios is just like feasibly impossible. It's a pipe dream. Like they're so much money and people working on a legitimate studio picture that it's just it's an impossible task. So our attempt is not to devalue Marvel Studios, but really just to complement them. So much of who I am is shaped by the comics that I read growing up. Just the moral lessons that I was taught at such a young age, and they had helped me to get through a dark time. So my hope is to hopefully create a piece of work that can do the same for the next guy.
The MCU absolutely needs people doing passion projects that complement it, because I think it also feels a little lost in the woods. You had talked about this being a piece for showcasing you and showcasing what you can do. Okay. Now there's already the MCU. Let me say this. Disney comes to you and says, great, we have an IP for you, but it can't be any of the ones that are going on. What unknown Marvel IP is the thing that you would want to do? Is there anything that you think that you could bring an eye to? Because there is projects, and I feel like their Spider-Man is about to be reinterpreted with whatever we get post Holland. What other Marvel heroes speak to you?
That's a great question. I haven't thought of that.
Because if I were to ask Taylor, he would say Gambit. He would, you know what I mean? Like, it would be like one of the 90s forgotten mutants we would love to see back in center stage again.
Sure. I'll tell you a few characters that speak to me that outside of course Spider-Man and some of the main canon heroes. I love Daredevil. Growing up Catholic myself, I have an interesting perspective that I feel like I can bring to Matt Murdock that hasn't been touched upon. I love the Netflix series. Charlie Cox is an absolute gem. I know that they're attempting to continue that in Born Again. So being able to throw my hat in the ring is would be a dream come true. I also think that Universal should bring back the Incredible Hulk and go back to basics. That would be something I would be very passionate about. Kind of go more in the Monsters of Manhattan realm and play on the Jekyll and Hyde angle and bring a little bit more on the horror side of things. So yeah, those are two characters that really speak to me. And of course, I can say that I love the Fantastic Four too. There are so many stories to tell with just like a good family narrative. So yeah, I'm a huge Marvel fan. Honestly, if Marvel Studios came to me, I'd take any character. Work in that realm.
Yep. Well, Joe's Pizza was in the first one. We'll do a whole Joe's Pizza series. It doesn't matter. We're into it. Yeah.
Taylor, is the Daredevil TV show done? Is it going to be? Is it going to come? No, it's not done.
It's not done. It was shut down due to the strike. So they're going to resume it once the strike is up. But there's so many conflicting narratives behind the show's existence. The most commonality is that everyone is saying is that it's a soft reboot. It's not 100% canon to what Netflix did, but it's also the way they're treating it is the Netflix stuff is a variant universe where it's like some of it lines up, some of it doesn't. So they're giving themselves plenty of room to reinvent what they want to, which is just what Kevin Feige does. I mean, there was always a notorious behind the scenes feud between Kevin Feige and Jeff Loeb anyways, and the Netflix verse is getting soft rebooted in its own way. So we'll see some changes, but we'll see some very similar things. But that show in particular, no, it's not finished yet.
Would they reintroduce Iron Fist in a Shang-Chi movie?
That would be cool.
They actually are talking about a solid reboot of Iron Fist. Because he was the one character that wasn't received well at all, and it was
not at all.
No, it was honestly Netflix's fault for rushing it. They tried to put that show out so quickly that they didn't have the stunt team ready, so they really half-assed a lot of the stuff very quickly.
I can attest to that. I had a few friends that worked on Iron Fist, and that was very much their experience. That they would be making the choreography on the day, but that's just a lot of the Marvel style is you have to make sure that you meet deadlines delivering the product, especially for shareholders and just being a content creator myself. Delivering anything is better than delivering nothing.
Yeah, I think that Sorry, what'd you say?
I said that's kind of a shame too because of how that mentality. My biggest problem that I have with Marvel isn't the content they put out, is the fact that they announce entire slates at a time. And with that, if people are paying attention, you can also kind of discern plot points. You're like, okay, so clearly Nick Fury is going to survive whatever comes the next 5 movies because he's in project number 12 as the press release put out. So like you can kind of like, it takes away some of the gravitas to some of the things, and you're like, wow, okay, this is going to work out. That's just my commentary on modern day slate announcements, is that they definitely screw up on showing the hands too quickly.
Certainly, quality over quantity is definitely important. And recently, even some of the leaders at Disney have been saying that they're planning on cutting back the amount of projects. If Disney can look at their slate and say, hey, maybe we've put out a bit too much content out there, then I know that a good portion of the audience feels the same with just the stigma around Marvel projects currently.
I was just going to say that the Shang-Chi universe honestly would be very, very interesting to go back into and expand a bit. Take this for what it's worth, but I was just looking at a random poll on Facebook today, and there were a bunch of heroes who asked who was your favorite hero from Phase 4 of the MCU, and Shang-Chi was the one that was on top of them all. So I think that was very well received by the audience. I have a martial arts background, and I can certainly say that the choreography was incredible for all of Shang-Chi. Really enjoyed the martial arts on display and just the quick pace of it. Yeah, it would certainly be something for me as a fan that I'd be interested in seeing more. Maybe a soft reboot of Iron Fist or bringing him in that way could be a great way to introduce him to new audiences.
I think we're just getting robot people for the next couple movies. Like, I think we're just getting more. Black Panther 2 is just people in robot suits. I'm pretty sure it's just going to be a bunch of more robot suits in the near future.
Well, I mean, we have Armor Wars, and we have Ironheart. We have a few more shows like that. It's it's a bunch of Iron people coming up.
Shang-Chi was my favorite of the Phase 4 movies. I honestly thoroughly enjoyed it. It just has a great structure. Second runner-up would be No Way Home. I just really enjoyed Shang-Chi. It was just so refreshing, and especially with the Jackie Chan style martial arts, I thought it was just absolutely incredible. If they do end up throwing in Iron Fist, I think that would be an interesting curveball that I wouldn't expect. I think Finn Jones could do something great in the new Marvel canon, but if they end up recasting someone, I could definitely see that as well. Just depends on the direction and what they're attempting to do.
Yo, if we're going to play the speculation game, let's go way out there. You could have Jessica Jones in the Spider-Man movie right? Because he's like, he can't be with her anymore, and he's like real sad, and he meets another girl who can like take punches and like, oh, okay, there's something about you. She doesn't have to be in the movie, but she could be a love interest or something like that, just to like sprinkle them back into the world.
Ultimate Comics, Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde would be great.
Sure.
That would be cool.
Listen, I appreciate both of your opinions. You're incorrect. The person they need to bring back is Felicia Hardy, Black Cat. I grew up on the 90s series. I need Felicia Hardy in my next movie. That's important.
No, I fully agree. If fake Mary Jane Watson / Michelle Jones is the love interest that's now sidelined, let's get the other comic love interest. Let's bring in Phyllis. Let's give it Black Cat for a run. Let's do some of that for a bit. Or better yet, let's introduce Gwen Stacy and have him have his heart break that way. Like, there's so many things they should be doing. And I'm finally happy with where they have him now. Let's get fun with it.
If you do Gwen Stacy, you got to do 2 movies, because you have to do 1 movie to introduce her, and then we have to have the movie. In fact, we need 3 movies, because then you need to see the Fallout movie of all of this. And I don't know, does he have 3 more movies in him?
They're supposedly to be doing that.
Okay.
Well, if you put him in college, I mean, he certainly plays as a college age person, and there's plenty of material that neither the Andrew nor the Toby series really got too much into, at least not as much as the 90s series in terms of college age content. So I think there's a ton to play with there. But yeah, that's an interesting point that you can't just introduce Gwen Stacy to kill her off 2 minutes later. That might not be the best pacing in the world. So yeah, need to spread it out.
You do. You need to have a proper trilogy. Have her die in the second one while simultaneously setting up his next person / okay, he's dating Gwen, and now MJ comes back into his life, and he's dealing with that. And yeah, you got to do it the right way. I mean, they tried to do some of that with Andrew's movies. Then they cut Mary Jane's entire stuff out of that movie, and then that movie got really convoluted on its own, but it's messy. But speaking of the movies, with your project, you were going full on Sam Raimi suit. So what was the decision to not make your own suit, but to pull off, to go that far into the inspiration with the Raimi design?
Yeah, there were a few different things that were going through there was a few things going through our minds while making that decision. The first thing was the fact that we started this in 2019. So creating your own suit was not the standard. The second thing is not to give too much away, but we are in a Raimi adjacent universe, and we'll end it at that.
All right. So with the other things that you did put out, I'm assuming this is Shocker.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, and then you have mutated Scorpion, is what I'm gathering. Okay, so we've got those two villains so far. You mentioned Kingpin. And then your behind the scenes photos showing him in a school setting. So there's going to be some sort of school confrontation, which sounds fun. Also, the inclusion of S.H.I.E.L.D. is going to have some aspects. So you're definitely building a very big universe here within your project. Without saying any spoilers, you already mentioned Kingpin. There's mutated Scorpion. There's Shocker. How big is your scope that you're planning for this project? Are you trying to introduce just a few rogues? Is there going to be a bunch of secrets and spoilers coming down? Like, not spoiler, big surprises coming down the line. You're going to have a handful more characters that people aren't expecting. How much do you plan on surprising people?
Definitely a handful more characters, especially ones that fans of the comics will get a kick out of, and maybe be able to say, "Oh, I know who that is," before we even introduce them, just with their knowledge of comic lore. But really, our primary desire in including all of these different villains in this world is to make the entire world feel alive, to feel like you're stepping into a week in the life of Peter Parker. And there's a lot of ways, obviously, to do that through just character work, and Brandon does an amazing job with that. He's our Peter Parker actor. But another way is just in expanding the world, making it feel lived in. We wanted to include S.H.I.E.L.D. because S.H.I.E.L.D. is just an integral part of a lot of Spider-Man stories, and they're quite frankly, if you're having the Kingpin doing these heinous acts on a larger scale, there should be some larger scale people looking into him, like S.H.I.E.L.D., like an enforcement agency. And I won't give too much away with some of the other characters that we have, but it's really just to make the world feel lived in, and make it feel to harken back to that idea that Peter Parker is in many ways a cog in a much larger world. That's how Spider-Man started out. As there were all these other heroes, and he was trying to find his place. There's definitely pieces of that in our series that we're looking to explore as he finds himself and integrates into that larger world.
Yeah, when Stan Lee had conceived of the character, the Fantastic Four had already existed. There were so many other characters that were living in that world, and Peter looked up to a lot of these heroes. So we want to play into that in our series, make it feel like there is a larger Marvel universe that Peter Parker can see on the horizon. We don't want to bite off more than we can chew. So we're just trying to create one really strong season. And if the fans want more, then that's certainly something that we would consider. We have plenty of incredible creators already attached to this project, playing Marvel icons. So if we wanted to expand upon those characters and spinoffs and things like that, then that it leaves the door open for that possibility.
How strong is your Kingpin? Because sometimes he's just like a buff dude, and sometimes he's like tiny version of the Hulk. How strong is your Kingpin?
That's a great question. All I'll say is that he is a formidable foe. You do not want to mess with him, very much like Vincent D'Onofrio's interpretation.
In that Spider-Verse movie, they made him a Hulk. He's so big.
So Vincent's also played two versions of that same Kingpin. In the Daredevil show, he was just a buff dude. And then in Hawkeye, he was ripping car doors off. So that's kind of what I'm saying about the soft reboot, is that they've already shown their hand that Daredevil's prior limits on Kingpin are not the same in the new MCU.
Yeah. And if Kingpin's ripping off doors, he can punch Spider-Man pretty hard then, because Spider-Man has trouble picking up a small cars.
Yeah.
What was the quote in the Spider-Man show is like, I've had trouble lifting a Buick, but now I'm like, Now
That's
I'm
when he gets
fighting-
the venom. Yeah, he gets the
he
venom.
gets the venom
suit.
suit and he's like lifting up a fire truck. And he's like, what the heck? Like, I couldn't lift a Buick before. Now I'm picking up a fire truck. But he did limit his own strength in that show. And then Kingpin was like breaking his bones when he was fighting him the first time. So.
Yeah, I'll just echo echo what Brandon said without giving too much away. That yeah, our Kingpin will certainly be formidable. One of my favorite lines about Kingpin is 350 pounds of pure muscle, and we certainly take into account a lot of Kingpin lore in creating him in our series. So Kingpin will be a formidable foe that Spidey is going to have to level up to be able to take down. He's sort of a larger than life character, having nothing to do with his physical size, and we certainly think that our Kingpin will live up to expectations of a strong villain.
So my last question, and you can choose not to answer it because I know that this is tearing that territory. You've already
Okay, we'll see you later then.
You've already mentioned Kingpin. We've seen Shocker, and we've seen the mutated Scorpion. You mentioned that your big inspiration was Ultimate Comics, and in the Ultimate Comics, they set up from the get-go, very much like the Spectacular Spider-Man show, that Norman Osborn was behind like everything. And he was the one who was like, oh, I made the spider, I made all the villains, I made this and that. Is that the situation you're kind of putting Kingpin in? Is he essentially a Lex Luthor version of Kingpin, where he's got the public persona, but he's also like a mad scientist behind the doors?
There are elements of the show that very much like Winter Soldier that lean on political thriller elements, and our Kingpin character dips into different types of genres. So we're not entirely sure what he's capable of at the start of the series, very much like Peter Parker doesn't know what he's getting himself into. But the purpose of the series is to not create a new interpretation of Spider-Man, but to throw him into new scenarios, akin to Winter Soldier. It doesn't change Captain America. We just put him in a new setting and see how he adapts to it. Kingpin allows for that new setting where this boy is now being forced to become a man. So Kingpin allows for us to explore a lot of different elements that we haven't seen on screen before.
I'll say something that's a little bit mysterious, answers your question, but not quite. If you asked a person in our Manhattan who Wilson Fisk is, they would likely be able to tell you. You could also ask the same person who Kingpin is, and they would have no idea what you're talking about. And I'll leave it at that.
So very akin to the 90s Spider-Man show where he was a public icon and Kingpin was a rumor.
I'd say that. I said what I said.
Taylor, is Kingpin a reverse Batman? Is he a guy who is like very well known publicly, but has a secret alternate life where he does his true bidding?
Well, that's how Kingpin is in the comics, and that's how Lex Luthor is in the comics. And yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Your Spider-Man has organic webbing then, correct? If he is Raimi adjacent?
No, not exactly. He does have web shooters, very much like the comics. Like I was describing a few minutes ago, we wanted him to feel very familiar. We didn't want to create a new interpretation or create a new suit where you would be questioning who this character is. It's not to put our stamp on the character. It's very much for him to feel like the hero that we know and love. And part of that in the comics and the 90s series and so many other interpretations is that he has web shooters. It's not organic. He has his classic utility belt and all of the accoutrements that you would expect from our favorite wall crawler.
So one of my favorite things from those original interpretations was Spider-Man running out of web fluid in the worst possible time imaginable. That was something
that's the true canon event. Uncle Ben and then runs out.
That was something that they never did in the movies. They kept teasing like, oh, he's charging his thing. I'm like, okay, so when is he going to rub out while he's swinging?
There's a whole plot point about that in episode 2. I don't want to give too much away, but there's this whole segment where he has to get to this like hideout, this evil person's hideout, and he has to take the train there because he ran out of web fluid.
That is an exclusive reveal for the culture.
Thank you.
We'll run out of web fluid. You can quote us on that.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite aspects of those original things. Even in like
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the show, the '90s show where Kingpin crushed his wrist and you saw the fluid flying around. I loved it when they made him like that was like one of his big vulnerabilities. Is like, all right, he's strong, he's this, but did he remember to pack the extra web fluid? Is he gonna like go down to grab one and be like, oh crap, I don't have it, and then like the fight is now him having to figure out how to fight without the web. So that was one of my favorite aspects of it.
Peter is an underdog in this series. He's always punching upward. So that's a part of the character that we adore. He's a broken hero. He is not necessarily someone that we always look up to. He's our neighbor. He's very much like us. He's part of that community, and that's something that clashes with Wilson Fisk's ideologies, where he thinks of himself as a god. He thinks that he needs to be running Peter's neighborhood, and he's actually running for mayor, which is something that we took right from the comics. And there's a whole Spider-Man run where Peter has to go up against Mayor Fisk, and there's a lot of fun comic lore that we pull from.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for giving us an insight into this and into your creative process, into this world. I have a much better understanding of some of the things that I'm going to see and some of the breadcrumbs that you have dropped for us to pick up later on. Where can our audience stay informed so that when things start coming out, they are in the know immediately?
Well, they can certainly check us out on our YouTube page. What's the URL, Brandon?
So you can find it on YouTube, Brandon Melo, BRANDON MELO, and all other platforms. It's at Marvel Spidey.
Wonderful. Do we have tentative dates? When do we get to put our peepers on this?
Soon.
Okay, great.
Go ahead, Brandon.
This project has been in the making for quite a while. We had shot all of principal photography, and we're looking to get into additional photography. We're hoping for later this fall, but that's pending our budget. We're still fundraising, and also the strike, because we want to make sure that we're respectful of all of our actors in the community. There's a lot of established actors on our project, and we want to make sure that they feel comfortable getting on our set. Like Alex said, I'll echo a similar sentiment that we're building a community here, a family. So we want to make sure everyone has an enjoyable experience. So there's a few things pending, but we're hoping to drop the pilot this winter if all goes well.
Well, thank you very much. I will not hold my breath. I will breathe normally, but I am excited to see it once it is ready. And thank you for bringing that level of professional to it, because, a rising tide lifts all the boats, and I can't wait to see these projects and future projects from you two. Thank you so much for joining us here at The Cultured Nerd.
Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate the time. Yeah,
it means a lot. Absolute honor. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
If you would like to help us keep making this content and bringing all of these wonderful people, head on over to our patreon.com/theculturednerd. There we can get all of your shekels and all of your paychecks. These nice people are giving us some of their paychecks. Thank you so much for doing that. Thank you so much for supporting us over here. Thank you very much for Jose Navarro. Thank you, Taylor Murphy and Jay Stu. Taylor Murphy's been your host. I've been your co-host, Michael Santel. If you have those cell phones, whip them out. Give that a click and a picture. You know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe. Let Taylor know what you're thinking. He'll bring it on air with me. And thank you all for joining us.
Thank you. See you next time.